Good morning. My name is Bill Pipke, and I'm the Executive Director of Commissioning a Lifestyle of Integrity. It's my privilege to welcome you here this morning for this morning devotions. Today, we're going to look at how trust makes all the difference in our becoming people of integrity who make a difference in building lives that count. For many years, Shirley, my wife, and I lived in a part of Canada that's well known for its fruit trees and vegetable farms. And the local farmers sold fresh produce by placing at the end of their lane in a fruit stand. And that what they would do is they would leave this nicely displayed fruit in a fruit stand at the end of their lane. And in the fruit stand would be generally a box with a slot in the top of it. And people would come by. They would choose the fruit they want. The prices were marked on the baskets, and then they would place the shillings, in our case dollars, in the container. And sometimes the farmer would even leave coinage so people could make the right change if necessary to purchase their produce. Now, the thing that's missing in this fruit stand is an employee. It was all based on trust. Now, when I tell people this story in various parts of the world, they kind of smile. When I was in Zambia, a leader looked at me and said, "You know, it used to be that way when I was a little boy. Farmers left things at the end of the lane, people purchased it, left the money, and then they came home with their product." But he said, today in Zambia, I don't know what it'd be like in Kenya, maybe the same. What would happen is probably all the produce would be gone. All the stand would be gone, and even the money would be gone. There'd be nothing left at the end of the day for the farmer. But that whole economy was built on trust. Do you realize what a lack of trust costs us in terms of business or marriage or church or education? If you start calculating what is the added cost because of lawyers and insurance and theft and employees not being engaged. When you start to look at all of these things, it becomes pretty apparent that a lack of trust has a huge economic conflict and cost, but a lack of trust has a huge relational consequence. Trust is one of the pillars of integrity. If I can trust you, then I want to build a relationship with you. But if I can't trust you, I don't want to build a relationship with you, and I'm hesitant to do any kind of business with you. Years ago, my father talked about what was called a gentleman's agreement. It was a simple business handshake, and there was not a long contract with all kinds of things within it to protect both parties. But a yes meant yes, and a no meant no. Coase and Poizner, a research company, surveyed 75,000 respondents in a variety of countries, different organizations, different settings, and their survey indicated that the number one characteristic desired by leaders, from pastors, from parents, from teachers, from government leaders, from everyone who leads, the number one thing, you guessed it, trust. Trust is universally expected. So you expect it from me, and I expect it from you. Sometimes maybe I don't live up to what I said I would do, and I yield to temptation, but I still expect it from you. You see, a thief doesn't expect to be stolen from, and a liar doesn't intend to be lied to. And an unfaithful spouse wouldn't think that they were going to get cheated on. And employees who waste the employer's time, they still expect the same pay, even if they didn't give proper work. I want to look with you for a few minutes at the story of a man who started with no trust and built trust. It's a story in Acts chapter 9, and if you want to find your Bible and find it on a media device, Saul was breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. And he went to the high priest and he asked them for letters to go to the synagogues in Damascus so that he could find anyone who belonged to the way, whether man or woman, and take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. And so Saul had a desire to have the legacy of being the man who put an end to a cult. And he was given papers to authorize him to do that. And what was the cult in his mind? Well, it was the church, and so he persecuted it. And if you've read the story of Acts 9, you know that on his way to Damascus, a light shines from heaven, the Lord appears to him, he falls to the ground, he repents, and a man by the name of Ananias was sent to his house to lead him in his prayer, to commit his life to God. The Lord said in the vision to Ananias, the eyes of Saul had been blinded by what was like a scale. And the Bible says that the scales fell off, and Ananias was there when Saul committed his life to God. Now, it's interesting that when Ananias was there and Saul confesses, people don't immediately trust Saul. I mean, even if Ananias says, I was there when he prayed and God healed him and I had a vision, what does the church do? The church says, listen, forgiveness is immediate, but trust is earned. You know, if you ask someone to forgive you, that is something the Bible calls us to do immediately. But if you ask someone to trust you, that is something you don't do immediately. Trust is earned. It takes character on the part of the one who is the offender. So forgiveness is like love. It's given. Now, it takes a lot of faith and patience and a diligence to continue to act in forgiveness, but it begins immediately. I forgive you. But if you're asking me to trust you, I would say to you, when I forgive you, I am giving you the opportunity to open a trust account with me. You can now show me that you can be trusted, and I'll choose to respond. You see, Paul, eventually, we meet him here as Saul. When he repents of his ways, the church says, we don't necessarily trust you yet, but we forgive you, and we give you a chance to show us that you can be trusted. Now, where did he begin? I think probably his trust account was at 0, maybe minus. And why would anyone whose brother had been tortured or someone been dragged off in their family by Saul, why would they trust him? Well, there didn't seem to be any reason, even if he's saying, I have confessed. So here's your responsibility. If you want to rebuild trust, if you want to gain trust, let's use the word trust, T-R-U-S-T. The letter T, it's your task to openly and continuously do things that will build trust. It says in Acts 9:22, Saul, day after day, testified to his conversion and preached the gospel. So if you're going to be a person who can be trusted, you do it day after day, and you stay consistent. The letter R is reliable. He made regular deposits. He didn't just do it on Sunday. It says day after day. And if you want to build a great relationship with your kids or your spouse or someone, does it happen with a one-time conversation? No, it takes many ongoing times together. You see, trustworthiness requires a reliability. And in verse 23, it says, after many days had gone by, after many days. And so there's this reliability. Now what happens is interesting. It says, after many days have gone by, there was a conspiracy amongst the Jews to kill him. So his former associates believed him, even before the church believed him. And now they're going to try to do something about it. And so T is you choose to be a person who says, my task is to gain the trust. R is, I'll do it reliably. And U is, I'm going to be uncompromised in doing that. You see, sometimes it's not going to be easy to keep your word. Sometimes it's going to be a challenge to do everything you know a trustworthy person would do. And so here's Saul. He doesn't have the church believing in him yet, but his enemies do, and they want to kill him. And it says in verse 25 something very interesting. It says, but his followers took him by night. Now, it didn't say the church. Notice that? While Paul had been sharing the good news of Jesus in Damascus, many had come to faith. And guess what? It was that group of people that would let him down over the wall. And so, even though you may not have gained all the trust you want from others, there will be people who will see what you're doing, and there'll be people who will encourage you. You're not going to have to wait to the very end to know if you passed. You see, Paul had people who led him over the wall. So TRUS, sacrifice. Sooner or later, your trust will be tested, and you'll be asked to do some things that are difficult. If you know that the headquarters of opposition to the church is in Jerusalem, what's the last city you want to go to? That city, Jerusalem. And where does Saul go? He goes to that city. He is willing to be tested. He's willing to go the distance then to prove that he is a disciple of Jesus Christ. And when he comes to Jerusalem, the people were still skeptical. But one man by the name of Barnabas heard his story and believed him and said, I am going to vouch for him. I'm going to certify that he's good. And so trust is given by Barnabas to Saul. You see, God's going to bless you when you start acting with trust, and there'll be people who will begin to add value to your account as well. So Paul's account is growing, Barnabas is added to it, and the church begins to give him opportunity to do good work. Now, the last letter, T, is that in time it paid off. When I say the Apostle Paul, do you think of the persecution first? Probably it's there, but what do you really think of? A man who traveled with a group of people. A man who shared the truth, and many, many people came to faith in Jesus Christ. You see, trust can be built. Imagine the very person you would never want to include, you are now including. Why? Because they've changed and they've earned trust. Trust will open a door for you. Trust will change your destiny. Trust will build your character. If you will choose, like Saul, to say, I've repented, forgiveness opens a door for me to become the person I want to be, then the good news is you can be trustworthy. I don't know your story. I don't know if there is a situation where people don't trust you anymore. I don't know if you find yourself not even able to trust yourself. But I am here today sharing with you that if Saul could move from total distrust to trust, you can too. It requires that you accept forgiveness that's offered to you in Jesus Christ or from others, and then you begin one day after another day after another day to do the right thing, even if it costs you. In time, the person of, I can't trust that person, will no longer be there. And people will begin to trust you. People will begin to come around you. People will even add value to your trust. If you will choose to say, I will not tolerate being a person who cannot be trusted, I'm going to choose to become a person who can be trusted, God will help you. You see, if it can be for Saul, it can be for you. So I don't know if you need to ask someone for forgiveness. You need to go to God for forgiveness, but if you will, He'll forgive you. And then I want to pray that you will choose to make the steps you need to every day, make a deposit in your trust account. So Lord, I don't know what may have destroyed trust for someone who's watching me today, but whatever it is, if they would confess that to you and ask for forgiveness, And if they will go to the person offended and ask for forgiveness, I pray that forgiveness will be granted. And then out of that place of forgiveness, may there be this door of opening so that they can start a trust account. May they begin to, day after day, rebuild their character, become the person who is trustworthy and responsible. So Lord, help them to be consistent and reliable and even sacrificial if necessary, to be the person who is trustworthy. Thank you that every person listening can be known as trustworthy, a person of integrity, and may they hear many people say at some day, I'm so glad I know them. They're trustworthy. I want to be their friend. They're trustworthy. Thank you for watching today. May the Lord give you a great day.